You don't build a thriving business by pushing harder. You build it by becoming stronger, clearer, and more aligned within. Welcome to the Voice of Impact, where belief meets action. Our podcast amplifies stories, systems, and solutions behind meaningful change. I'm your host, Robert Ndoping. Today's conversation invites us to rethink success, not as something we chase, but as something we cultivate from within. Because behind every thriving business is a person, and that person's strength determines the sustainability of everything they build. My guest today is Bethany Stone, a master mindset and life skills coach who helps entrepreneurs and leaders build thriving businesses by first strengthening the person behind the business. With over 2 decades of experience in education, human development, Bethany brings a holistic approach to coaching, blending practical business strategy with deep personal growth. At the heart of our work is a powerful belief that sustainable success is rooted in alignment. Instead of encouraging people to hustle harder, she helps them cultivate inner clarity, emotional awareness, and daily habits that allows both their lives and businesses to flourish naturally. In her coaching framework, she's built 5 essential areas of self-care: emotional, spiritual, physical, social, and intellectual well-being, helping individuals build the resilience, confidence, and clarity needed to lead people with purpose. Through her Thriving by Nature programs and speaking, including coaching, Bethany guides entrepreneurs to reconnect with their values, organize their lives, and develop the life skills needed to navigate challenges with patience, persistence, and perspective. At the core, Bethany's mission is simple yet powerful: to help people grow from the inside out so that success is not just built by hard work, but by a sustainable, deep, fulfilling drive from the person, from the inside to the outside. Bethany, welcome to the Voice of Impact.
Thank you, Robert. I'm excited to be here.
And we're excited as well. And we're going to be, just digging a little deeper just so that there's somebody out there that could pick out something, especially from the amazing work that you've done for more than 2 decades. But before we go into all of that, I mean, all of the coaching, building thriving businesses, we'd love to start with you. What experiences shaped your belief that success begins from within? And how did those experiences, build, you as a person before the business?
When I think about all of the experiences that I've had that have grown me, I honestly think that I was very much so blessed with the perspective of um, always seeing the bright side of life, which has definitely helped me through some difficult things. But also, as I've been looking back on my life and the experiences that I've had that have really built me and developed me, I realized that if I would not have had that, it would have shifted a lot of things. And now I teach it and it helps to shift other people's perspective. But I think the first time that I really realized that was really actually quite young. Um, when I was 3, actually. And my mom tells this story and she gets a little frustrated about it whenever she talks about this. But I've always been a pretty determined person. Always really like pretty much I think I can do anything all the time. And I've always been like that, even as a 3-year old. I was like, I can do that. But I was 3 and my mom took away a lollipop that I really wanted to have. And I was in a town of 1,000 people, and there's a little gas station, and I grabbed my little tricycle as a 3-year old and drove to the gas station and bought myself a sucker, another lollipop. And being in such a small town, a man there who knew who I was and knew what family I belonged to was like, "Where's your mom?" Because, 3-year olds should not be out doing things like this. So he puts my little tricycle in the back of his truck, brings me home, knocks on the door. I was in a lot of trouble, obviously. And I did not get to keep that lollipop. But I learned something that in that small instance of being able to figure something out, that I could do hard things. And even from a young age, throughout my entire life, when I was 16, our house burned down, and then life goes on. I mean, you go through trials in your life. My That was a hard trial as well. And then as I got older and became a woman and got married, my first marriage was very physically and emotionally abusive. And there's a lot of addiction and alcohol and just a lot of terrible things that were really heavy. But I kept that same perspective as a child that, you know what, this is hard, but I can do hard things. And I didn't let it destroy me as a person. And then shifting on, got married again. And this one was even more abusive, actually. And it was terrible and very emotionally abusive, which I did not know that that was so much worse than physical abuse. And shifted. Luckily, that one almost did crush me, but I was able to move forward from that as well. Life goes on, trials. There's always going to be hard. There's always going to be hard. Life moves on. Took me a long time. I pretty much became a man hater for a little bit, became better, but I had 3 boys, boy mom, and life goes on. Life is hard. And slowly I started opening myself up again. I got remarried again, third time. My husband is amazing, by the way. We've been married for almost 7 years. And one of my sons got sick. And I have been in this entire time, I've been an educator, a Montessori educator, speaking at conferences for over 12 years. I opened up a school, I sold a school. I've done so much stuff in developing everyone around me and trying to teach these skills as I'm dealing with hard. And now my son is sick. And here's another kind of hard. And I shifted and I moved home. I think what I've realized through everything, because there's always going to be hard. It doesn't matter. Being married is hard. Being single is hard. Being rich is hard. Being poor is hard. Being sick is hard. Keeping healthy is hard. There's always going to be hard. Always. It doesn't matter what the situation is. There's always going to be hard, but it's how you look at that hard and how you approach that hard that makes all the difference. Because it's not going to be easy. There's always going to be hard. And you have to have the resilience and the clarity to be able to see that on the other side of that hard, there's going to be some benefit and there's going to be joy.
So inspirational, and we really appreciate you sharing, something that personal to you. And I believe, there's someone listening that will get inspired from that message. And I agree with you. It's never gonna be easy. I mean, it's always best for us to choose the easy way out. but it's never gonna be easy. So, I mean, just you sharing that, I mean, it's almost like challenging somebody listening to say, I mean, being single, being married, you know, being poor, being rich, it's all gonna be hard because there gonna be things which you have to walk through. I just love that. I love that. One of the things you normally, which is like a principle for you, is that you challenge the idea that success comes uh, not from pushing harder, um, but from, building ourselves within and that alignment, not just that, hustle all the time. What led you to this, and what are some of those principles that have built this?
Well, I mentioned a little bit that second marriage that almost broke me. That was when I had a real shift because I've always been that person. I can do it all. I can do anything. But when I had that shift was when I was almost broken. And I realized that I wasn't doing anything for me anymore. And as a Montessori educator, something that you have to understand is that when you become a Montessori educator, it's like a mantle that you wear. It like exudes from you. All you just believe in developing the entire person, the whole person. And when you are developing children, you are also developing yourself. It is something that is just the most beautiful type of education. I can't even describe it. But I wasn't living to my own values anymore. And I was trying to do something to appease other people. Well, I was in an abusive relationship, and that does happen. Whereas you feel like you have to walk on eggshells. You feel like you have to like compensate and give everything of yourself to fix the situation that you really have no control over and blah blah blah. It's just a terrible situation to be in ever. But at that time I had the clarity of I have lost myself and I wasn't growing anymore in any way. And I've always been a person of growth. I was completely stagnant. And it was the only time in my life I've ever had like suicidal thoughts ever. Like I've always been very positive. And I realized that I forgot some of the core things. And that if you do not have anything for yourself, there's no way that you can give. I wanted to give, but I had nothing left. And it was at the moment when I looked outside of my window and I actually saw a hummingbird couple making a nest. And hummingbirds are really, they like to camouflage everything so well that it's hard to see that. And they're making this nest. And I thought to myself, this is so cool. This is such a rare event. And I know this because I'm a Montessori educator and I've taught about hummingbirds and how rare this is. And all these things that I knew about hummingbirds started coming to my mind. Like they collect the softest materials out of nature to make their nests. They will find cotton. They will find anything that is just so fluffy and they will and like very intrinsically weave it into this beautiful nest. And I just thought, oh, what an amazing thing this is. And I at least had the emotional awareness enough to feel a shift right there. I was like, whoa, that is something I haven't felt in such a long time. And it was gratitude for the knowledge that I had, for this amazing experience, and just that little tiny thing that just filled me. All of a sudden, I felt like I could give again. I felt like I could now pursue something else that was hard because I didn't think I could. And actually, I didn't realize at the time, but that was actually the beginning of me creating my curriculum. I mean, I've been creating curriculum for years and years. And actually, for neurodivergent children, I've been creating curriculum for kids with autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, Down syndrome, and adapting it in Montessori classrooms. And now that I am in this place where I just feel so lost, I realized, oh, there is a way to fill yourself. And so that little glimmer of hope was enough for me to realize I needed to do things for myself. And it's interesting because they're not really, when you think about it, there's stuff that we should be doing every day that we don't, and we forget. The only things I started doing for myself was making sure I made my bed every day. I was doing that for me, making sure that I was, taking my vitamins. I was doing that for me, making sure that I was just saying a prayer of gratitude. I was doing that for me. Those little things gave me so much strength because all I was doing was filling of myself. But as soon as I was able to do that, the things I knew, the intrinsic motivation, the desire to do things because they're the right thing to do, the integrity that I've always tried to respond from came back. The the why, my purpose came back. And my ability to love and serve and give came back. And I also had the clarity that I actually have a choice. I have the autonomy to be able to make my own choices. And I had the strength to do so. It was literally just one little drop in the cup that changed everything. And as I continue to speak at educational conferences, I've realized that this was something that many people are losing. And we're very much so in a society that wants to stifle us so much so and fit us into these boxes that we may not fit. And we might just feel so trapped. And almost how I did when I saw those hummingbirds right before I saw them. But in reality, we don't have to fit anybody's box. We don't. What we need to do is make sure that we are okay. And when we feel of ourselves, then we can actually have the clarity to move forward. I did a hot take. I do these little hot takes, mindset and Asana things on my YouTube channel. They're just like little tiny mindset things. And I look gross because I'm sweaty and in the sauna, and it just is. And I just recently did one about masking. And I can't believe how many people reached out to me over it because I said in this little bite-sized mindset thing is that we all wear masks. I think that people don't realize that, but every single person wears a mask because if you're using any type of words like overwhelmed or stressed or just any of those words, those are literally masking words to our core emotions. And we don't want to deal with what the core emotion is. But it's when we have the emotional awareness to be like, whoa, take a step back. I am feeling this. This is the why of that emotion or those words. Now let's go forward. Let's figure out how to feel of ourselves so that we don't have that. And that's what I've really specialized in doing and helping and support because I've lived a lot of life. I've been through a lot of things. I understand. I can empathize in such a strong way because I've lived it and I understand it. And it's not a place that anyone really wants to be.
Thank you so much. And there's something you touched there. You talked about shifts. I mean, in your opinion, what shifts in a person's life and business when they move from force to alignment?
I think what happens in the business owners that I work with is that we work so hard that our identity becomes our business. We don't have that autonomy that I talked about to be able to choose anymore. We're putting everything that we have into our business, and so much so that we're not taking care of ourselves. Maybe we are not being emotionally abused or physically abused or whatever from somebody else, but we're kind of doing it to ourselves in a sense because we are not giving ourselves time and our identity is becoming our business. And when that happens, we literally lose ourselves. We lose ourselves so much so that we don't even know what we like to do anymore. It is all about business. And when we have that, then we start disconnecting. We start having the connections. And so many times our vision gets very cloudy and we're not progressing anymore. And we think, well, I just need to work harder. I'm just going to put in, 120 hours this week. All I need to do is eat and sleep. I just need to focus on this. And that's actually the total opposite of what you have to do. Because what you need to do is you need to fill of yourself and then fill of your business because it starts with you first. And if you're not okay, your business is not going to be okay. And people will see that. You are not going to make the sales. You are not going to make the connections. You're not going to make the relationships because if you are not okay, you're not going to make those connections. People can feel that. And you're just going to be spinning in a vicious cycle continually. And so it is so crucial, like to see that you have to have the intrinsic motivation and respond from the core value of who you are, not what somebody else wants you to respond to, because that is what makes a true entrepreneur. And that's what sets it apart. I think so many people don't understand that, uh, Sergey, well, the inventors of Google, the inventor of Amazon, like the greatest entrepreneurs, Meta, Wikipedia, they were all educated by Montessori education. They, because they understand this is all we teach is about intrinsic motivation and autonomy. I just now have created a curriculum for adults because we just don't have that anymore. We are missing the life skills that we need to be able to do this for ourselves. And that is what it's all about. Let's fill of ourselves so that we can see how we can move forward, so we can get out of that vicious cycle. We're supposed to have the emotions, we're supposed to have the hard, but it's the awareness and the clarity that comes with it on the other side that is going to really push you to go forward.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you are not okay, I mean, there's so many things that actually go wrong. I mean, talking about, the curriculums you create, the work you've been doing, you center your work around five key areas: emotional, spiritual, physical, social, and intellectual well-being. Why are these so essential for leadership and business success?
Because if you do not understand your emotional base, so I actually call it the 5 buckets of self care. And I call it that, well, the real reason why I call it that is because when I was in a classroom with children, there was a song that I really didn't like, and it was called There's a Hole in Your Bucket. And it's a terrible children's song, and I did not like it because these kids, they have this bucket, there's a hole in it, they keep filling it up with rocks and straw and all these things. And it doesn't matter what they filled up with, at the end of the song, there's still a hole. And I've never taught this song because it drove me absolutely crazy. So when I created this curriculum, I decided that I'm going to fix this song and fix everyone and support everyone at the same time. So I'm fixing it's dual purpose here. So um, you have to fill of each area and it pours into the next. And that's the piece that I think people are missing. For example, so many people decide, okay, I am going to become, I'm going to work on my physical health and my physical self care. And I'm going to go on this diet. I'm going to exercise. I'm going to drink water. I'm going to do all of these things. And they do. And then they fail and they stop and they go through the cycle repeatedly over and over and over again, not realizing that the reason why this cannot be a substantial thing in your life is because you've never actually filled up your emotional and your spiritual. These buckets have to build a foundation because if you do not want to fail, you have to build up a system. And so you start with your emotional bucket because there is emotional intelligence and emotional awareness. Many people will have emotional intelligence because that is, how you respond, how you read a room. You can tell this conversation is ending. People are giving the key words, the body language. This is emotional intelligence. But the emotional awareness piece, there's not very many people that have that. They don't understand their emotions. They don't understand the development of emotions, that the first 6 emotions that were developed within the first year of life, and the first one was fear. We developed fear very first. That is our default emotion. If you do not recognize how things were developed and your why on everything, why do I always revert back to this? Why do I self sabotage? Why do I do this? If you're not understanding your why, then you're not going to ever progress. You're always going to self sabotage yourself and fall back because you're not even aware of your own emotions. When you have a good base of that, that bucket then pours into your spiritual self care. And your spiritual self care is very much so your core values and your core beliefs. What do you respond to? What do you respond from? One of my core beliefs is integrity. That is something that I have carried with me forever. And I believe that and I respond to it and I react to it as well. And I know that that is one of my core values and beliefs. And when you can understand that, you can start creating the boundaries because you know what takes away energy from you and you know what fills you. And you can create those boundaries because protecting your energy, your spiritual self care is crucial. Then again, that pours into your physical self care. And your physical self care is super cool because it is your most important bucket. Because if you do not have your health, you do not have anything. And I do nutrition, and I'm actually a ballroom dance coach and a bungee fitness instructor. Because another thing about Montessori educators is that we just wear a lot of hats because this is how we are. Like we just are like this. I don't know a Montessori educator that's not like this, that doesn't wear a million hats. And we wear them well. And I love to teach about health and nutrition and talk about how everyone needs to fill themselves differently in that aspect as well. And it's not just about diet, hydration, sleep, movement. There's a key component here about environment, setting up your environment for success, like understanding how to set up your physical environment for success. That's something we don't talk about a lot. And then once you have a physical self care in place, then that pours into your social self care. Because when you are radiant and you have that confidence, because you know who you are, you're responding to who you are, you understand your emotions, you are going to be ready to connect and connect with everybody and know how to connect with them and have great communication skills and be able to understand conflict resolution, bring down emotions in high conflict areas, make the connections, want to participate within your community and build yourself, because that is what it is. Social self care is looking outside of yourself and building others around you. Communication, peace education, that is all social self care. And then that bucket then pours into your intellectual self care, which is very much based on how you fan the flame of drive within you, the drive to learn, the drive to challenge, the drive to keep moving forward, keeping the clarity intact. And when you're able to do that, you've built yourself and your business is building with you because you have the clarity, you have the direction, and you have the energy, you have resilience, you have just the time because you know how to time manage. You have these things in place that we're lacking as business owners, and we have to just, it's creating a puzzle. And once you have the pieces, the picture is really beautiful.
But yeah, I just love the way you paint and picture a few things all related together and how that builds us. Let's talk a little bit about patterns. So, what patterns do you see in people who begin to nurture all five areas consistently?
So this is really cool. I told you a little bit about the things I started to do for myself once I was able to really move forward and gain that strength that I needed. I just started realizing that I needed to do things for myself, make my bed, take my vitamins, prayer of gratitude. And by doing these things, I feel good myself. So I started creating something called a Better Me list. And I have about 23 things on my list, and I handwrite it out every single day. And this is part of my morning ritual that I do. And I look at it and I know that if I do every single one of these things every single day, I fill every one of these buckets. And they're individual to me. Everyone has different things that need to fill them specifically. But making my bed, taking my vitamins, and a prayer of gratitude are still on that list today. And it's beautiful because it's almost like everyone talks about, the 1% better. It literally is your list to be that 1% better because it's custom to you and it's what you need to do specifically. And there's one of the things on my list that is one of my favorite things I never thought would be. One of the things on my list that I do every day is I reach out to a friend and I just call somebody, like one of my contacts, high school friend, a sister, a new acquaintance. I just reach out every single day. I make sure that I touch base with somebody new in my life and I rotate through them and it just the connection and how I can feel them and they feel me is beautiful. And that's one of my favorite things to do on my list every day. But it's just that concept of being able to fill yourself so you can fill others. They talk about it on the airplanes. Put your oxygen mask on first. That's a true thing. You have to. And we just forget. And the patterns that I see with entrepreneurs is that they're very much so getting caught in what is called a vicious cycle. And I actually created a graphic for it because the problem was, and I teach it when I speak at different places, because the problem is that so many people were talking about the vicious cycle, but nobody was actually showing you what it was. And if we're going to be talking about having emotional awareness, you actually need to see it because people learn differently. We have so many people that are visual learners and they need to see things. They need to see captions whenever something is on. They need to, like, there are things that have to happen for everyone to learn the way that they need to. So I created it and I created the vicious and virtuous cycle and actually graphics for them because that is where we're getting caught. We are not realizing that that negative thought really affects our body because anything that we think affects our body. And our body and our mind are completely connected. So if we're having a negative thought like, I just can't do this, there's so much to do today, there's no way I'm going to get through this. That negative thought right there is going to affect your body. And your energy level is going to be lower. You're going to have hunched shoulders. You're going to look down more. You're not going to have the motivation to do everything because you already self-sabotage yourself with that negative thought. But the awareness of having that, we're going to have them. It's the awareness piece I'm going to teach because on the other side of this, well, as the cycle continues, first I'll go here. Negative thought, after you have that, your body is low. After your body is low, then all of a sudden you just don't have the energy to take care of yourself. Stop taking care of yourself. You start being like, you know what? I worked out last week. That counts for today. And you start self talking yourself and you start shifting things. And what is it called? You just start making it okay, even though it's not. And then after that, you just don't have the self esteem that you used to. And then after you don't have the self esteem that you used to, you're like, I just don't feel good about myself. You start closing in on opportunities and connections. People will call and be like, hey, do you want to do this? Nah, I'm tired. Then you think that you're going to do self care. But what you're going to do is you're just going to binge watch Netflix all night long. And you're telling yourself, oh, this is self care. But it's not. It's you falling deeper into a vicious cycle. And then after that, you're not going to be achieving your goals. You can't see a way out. You become overwhelmed. You're now using all these masking words to identify what you're feeling, and you're not going anywhere. And then the vicious cycle continues, and it's a funnel. That is what a vicious cycle is. And that is the system or the cycle that I see people in every day. But on the other side of that is a virtuous cycle. And that very much so is having that positive thought. But I can tell you that when you're in a vicious cycle and you have a negative thought swirling around, it is nearly impossible for you to have that positive thought. Like it is hard. But remembering that your mind and your body are connected. So having the autonomy to be able to choose that, you know what? I may not be able to think this right now, but I can act it. So I am going to sit up tall and I am going to put my head up and I'm going to act like I have that positive thought because your body will then tell your mind, hey, guess what? It's a really beautiful day. And that is your hummingbird. And that is all you need is that one little glimmer of positive, and that can shift you if you let it. But it is the awareness piece and knowing where you're at. Also knowing that you can ebb and flow. You're supposed to be in both of these cycles continually, but you're also supposed to recognize where you're at and that you don't want to go to the next step and you need to jump. And that's the important thing is the awareness piece because our emotions are supposed to ebb and flow, but you need to know how to do it. And that's what I help with.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing I picked there. I mean, you can't help other people with an empty cup. You need to fill your cup such that you have enough to be able to give. Just like you gave the analogy of the plane, is that put on a mask first before supporting others. We definitely need that self-care, that inner being inside. I really enjoy that. So your work is also rooted in nature and natural rhythms. How does reconnecting with nature influence how we live, lead, and even grow?
Because I grew up, my parents, they own a nursery, a greenhouse and a landscaping nursery. And I've learned through nature. I've planted little seeds and I saw how these seeds could grow into beautiful things. I've also seen how seeds can get sick and not germinate and not grow. I've also seen how plants can have the wrong nutrients and then all of a sudden get sick, and how you have to heal a plant and make it grow. I think that nature teaches us so many lessons. And I think that within each of us, we have so many seeds of potential, so many seeds of growth that we just need to nurture the right way. And sometimes we've actually even grown those plants, but now they're sick. And now they need to be nurtured a different way, or they need to have different nutrients. And I very much so believe in the lessons that nature has taught us is part of who we are as well. And we sometimes just have to realize that those lessons are also for us and they are meant for us. We're growing every day, but are we growing in a way that we're going to be producing fruit? Or are we growing in a way that we're sick and we're just trying to survive, but slowly things are shriveling on us and dying? How are we growing? And I think it makes a big difference. And there's actually, I have a little podcast. They're very short. They're like 8 to 20 minutes long. It's just me. And I just talk about life skill. And I talk about, there was one podcast that I did about communication and relationships. And I brought up a tree and how sometimes, we'll have relationships in our lives that really benefit us and they're great. But at the same time, that relationship doesn't benefit us anymore. And if you do not prune your tree, that can make us sick and ruin your entire root system and kill the tree. There are times in our lives where we have to really look at the lessons that nature is giving us and take them to heart because I truly believe that those lessons are for us as well.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way you describe that. And nature is something I also love. I mean, there's just so much we have to learn with animals, with birds, with insects, and everything about nature. There's just so much that, we have to learn. I want to give you an opportunity to share a message to someone listening, especially as it relates to the work you do and how all of those things are connected to us as leaders, to us as people.
I think the message that I would want to tell somebody is that you're doing better than you think. I think we often are so hard on ourselves and we just self talk and negative self talk ourselves. And we sometimes think that the words that we're telling ourselves are going to motivate us in some way. If I tell myself that, this was crap and I can do better, that's going to make me want to do better next time. But it doesn't. If I could say something to someone who's listening that really needs it, is it would talk kindly to yourself and focus on the things that you are doing right, even if they're small. Because those, when you magnify the beauty, then the imperfections don't seem so big. Um, and there is beauty in imperfection. And I think that we also forget that piece as well. So it's not about being perfect. It's about being exactly who you are, responding to who you are, and having that just feeling that you have worth. And because of that, you are beneficial to everyone around you. And knowing that is what's going to change everything. So you're doing better than you think.
Yeah, you're doing better than you think. That's so lovely. As we start to wrap up a few things here, we have a voice of impact word die, and it has six sides. We call them the themes of the voice of impact, and I would definitely just read it out for you to be able to choose two: one for your journey, one that speaks to your personal journey, and the other that could be a message for somebody listening to us right now. So it's make a difference, rebuild, overcome, stronger, peace, and patience. I'll repeat it again. Make a difference, rebuild, overcome, stronger, peace, and patience. So you can choose two.
Okay, I think the one for me is stronger. That's actually something that I tell myself. It's something I write down every day is that I am strong. That is something that's my, I can't even think of the word, but that's what I use right now. That's my affirmation. That's the word. That is my affirmation right now. And then whoever's listening is, I would say, peace, because sometimes we just need to take a breath and realize that there's peace in the journey, even though you're not feeling it right now. And you can also create that peace. You get to choose that.
That's amazing. Stronger and peace. Those are two very powerful themes that we also love here at the Voice of Impact. So, Bethany, there should be somebody listening that really wants to connect with you, that wants to learn about Thriving by Nature programs, that wants to learn about your coaching, and your curriculum that you build. So, how can they best reach you?
So you can email me at Bethany@thrivingbynature.com or go to my website, thrivingbynature.com. Both of those places you are able to reach me. I actually have a free masterclass I do every month that anyone can go to. I do cap it at 12 people. And it's really beautiful because it is nurturing one of these areas. And every month we talk about one of these areas and we just learn about it. And I love the people that come and it's very conversational. It's a great masterclass. And then I also have a course that goes through the 5 areas of self care with some tasking so you can discover for yourself. And you're welcome to find me on my website, reach out to me, and I can direct you to any of these things that you're interested in. There's also a drop-in group coaching that I do specifically for entrepreneurs. That's also on my website. I set apart 3 hours a week in different time spots to meet everyone's time zones. And you can just have a drop-in session whenever you just need that clarity. Because the thing about self-care is that sometimes we're just in that vicious cycle for this much time and we just need a little support right now. And that's what I wanted to create. There is support right here, right now, that is available to you. And so I have drop in coaching, I have one on one coaching, I have courses and master classes that you're welcome to come. And I'm also part of a Life on Fire experts team where we will be doing summits, and they're starting. First one is in the end of April, and that one is going to be amazing. It's free to register, and there's going to be amazing speakers that are all going to talk into how to build yourself from the ground up and really make yourself just the best version of you that you can be. So,
Bethany, thank you. Thank you for reminding us that success is not just something we chase, it's something we cultivate. And today's conversation reminds us that, most important investment we can ever make is in ourselves. Because everything we build flows from within. I mean, for somebody listening, you've gotten the contacts of Bethany. You've learned about her programs. I mean, you've gotten just a tip of the iceberg of what she does. She does a lot of insightful, and she changes people. She changes entrepreneurs. She changes coaches. And so I will encourage you, if you find any of these things really relevant to you, please reach out. Please reach out to her. She's more than happy to be able to connect and have a conversation as to how she could support you. You don't need to do more. You don't need to struggle inside. You need more alignment. And the life you're building begins with the choices you make from within. Bethany, thank you. Thank you so much for joining the Voice of Impact today. We are really glad that you made time to spend with us today.
thank you, Robert, for having me.
So, when your inner world is in order, your outer world begins to reflect it. We are Ndoping and co-performance designers and strategy coaches, and we help leaders and organizations create what we call clarity, alignment, and sustainable impact. This has been the Voice of Impact. Until next time, keep growing, keep aligning, and keep using your voice.
It's very simple. Empower as many people as possible. Empower as many leaders as possible. Touch as many, professionals as I can. Be able to make a difference.